think of the IRS getting in there?
I should have listened to my friend Jonas. I'm actually getting audited right now, so I love these guys. Look, that's true, actually. The IRS has called actually 3 times as many people this year as they did last year. They are underfunded and understaffed. It is tough for them to be able to prosecute and catch guys who are hiding and not paying their taxes, much less to do something with Obamacare. You're going to have to start almost completely over, building a whole new infrastructure. So you might as well do what Gary B. is saying and hire a private enterprise to do this. Look, if you'd have hired Jeff Bezos to do the government website, that website would have been done correctly. The problem was the government tried to do it, and the government does not do things very well.
Tracy, I wish you were working for the IRS because you're a great accountant.
But on behalf of the accountants of the world, it's like, don't shoot the messenger here, because you get these congressional leaders they make up these rules. They don't know what they're doing, and then they send them to the IRS and say, here, enforce them. And as Gary said, they're on a shoestring budget. There's like 4 people working there at this point. They're so short-staffed, and they have all this extra stuff to do. It's so unfair, and it is ripe for fraud because no one's in the shop right now watching it.
David, what do you think of that?
Well, I believe it's never good news when you have people trying to defraud the system, and that's what they have to combat. But luckily and fortunately, they had caught this. It's been flagged, and they're going to put measures in to prevent it from happening in the future. And already this year, as John alluded to, they've already caught about $12 billion in fraudulent claims that they will not have go out. And so we can only hope that that continues and that they will start reducing the incidence of it, but it's something that also the private sector has to endure and combat and spends billions of dollars trying to do so as well.
Okay, but Jonas, let's get Jonas in here. They have a really big job in addition to what they're already doing.
First of all, let's say the other panel should be saying good things about the IRS before the October 15th deadline, like I did, and they wouldn't be facing, now they're all
You're the smart boy,
cover
okay.
their butts. Okay, first of all, look, the IRS is not the perfect agency to implement. This is a ridiculous way of doing the healthcare thing. However, of the government agencies, I would give the IRS the most credit. And I'll use this example. The $5 billion. If you look at the amount of money they go through to handle the trillions of income that they report on, that's a very low fraud rate. And I'll give you, just personally, my Amex card they were charging jewelry in Bulgaria, and Amex lost money on that. My HSBC card was frauded 3 times. They had to change the number. That's real money as a percentage of total charges at those companies. I would imagine, and that's high IT at those companies, I bet they have higher loss rates to fraud than the IRS.
Yeah, but they have
and that's the private sector. And let me tell you, to answer most questions, healthcare.gov ain't going public. You're not going to get rich like the IPO over Twitter this week, which means no one wants to work there who wants to make real money in the tech world.
But there's no allowances for loans lost in at the IRS, Joe. I mean, there is in corporate America. You don't have that. And I'll tell you what, identity theft has actually increased year over year. 1.6 million people suffered from it this tax filing season versus 1.2 last year. So it's getting worse. I don't actually think it's getting better.
Okay.
It's getting better at the IRS, to correct you. They had more losses in 2010 related to this, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, okay.
They did.
Last word. Part of the trailer for Monday's SpongeBob Gets Fired special. After he gets a pink slip, his unemployed starfish friend, Patrick, is said to tell him, don't worry, collecting unemployment is a great gig. But SpongeBob insists on hunting for a new job instead. Tracy, you say this is exactly what our kids need to hear today?
Yeah, well, look, I'd be the first to tell you I'm not a SpongeBob fan. I don't really enjoy. I think he's fresh. I think he's so fresh. But I love that even with his pink slip, aka dress, because that was a really cute little moment. He says, I gotta go get a job. I can't live like this. This is exactly what the kids need to hear. This notion that they're getting it from SpongeBob, who cares where they're getting it from these days? Because everything else they're hearing is so bad and is basically convincing them that they should sit on the couch and collect the government dole.
Well, David, recession hits Bikini Bottom, Fox News alert. Which is the better role model? I mean, how can you say Patrick when he's just sitting back there taking in all the government dole?
Well, I believe that SpongeBob is as a protagonist.
We're doing this.
SpongeBob, as a protagonist, is upholding and representing the values that we as Americans all like to think of in terms of hard work and making a good living and providing for our families. Right. I think his friend, I think that's a little exaggerated caricature when you think of all the people that are trying to find work that may be unemployed and and maybe on support with regard to the health care, the insurance that they paid into to cover them when they're unemployed. And so I think SpongeBob is fine in that in that representation, but I have a little misgiving about his friend
All
there.
right, Gary B., this isn't Shakespeare, it's a cartoon, but really, SpongeBob or Patrick, who's the role model you want your kids to be watching?
Well, obviously, I'd like them to be, watching SpongeBob. But here's the problem, Brenda. I think inherently most of us are lazy, and we take the path of least resistance. And the problem is, when the path of least resistance is lined with gold, as the government has done, my gosh, since I've been growing up, it's becoming worse and worse with generous food stamps and healthy unemployment benefits, things like that. It's very easy to be the non-SpongeBob and to sit back and say, you know what, I'm not going to work. Brenda, when you and I were growing up, we didn't have those options. You had to go out or get a job because there wasn't this healthy food stamp program and things like that. So it's the government's problem.
Okay, John, what do you say? Which one?
Are we really characterizing Americans as SpongeBob and non-SpongeBobs?
Yes.
I only care what Winnie the Pooh has to say, by the way. Look, I'm with David. Most Americans are like SpongeBob. I can't believe I just said that.
Yes,
or like SpongeBob.
you did, and you said it on tape.
That's right. They want to work. They don't want to get a hand up.
Jonas, you got about 15 seconds to tell us what you think about this. If you've ever seen SpongeBob, I don't know.
Well, it's in international water, so labor laws don't apply. But I will say someone's got to stand up for the Patricks of the world. These programs, by the way, phase out, so they don't disincentivize you to earn an additional marginal dollar. But if all the Patricks of the world all of a sudden had to work really bad because they took away all the benefits, what do you think that would do to wages
we gotta
for low-end
go,
people?
Jonas. I'm sorry. We'll hear about SpongeBob from you later. All right.
Jonas
Thanks, guys, and thanks to David for joining us.
Pleasure.